Hi, I'm Daniel from Solar Choice, Australia's #1 quote comparison platform for electric vehicle charging, solar, batteries and heat pumps. And this is another video in our series talking about electric vehicle charging in apartment buildings. In this episode, we'll be looking at whether it's best to connect electric vehicle chargers to individual unit electricity meters or to the common power meter. And that's going to be a different answer for every building. Sometimes that decision won't even be in your hands. But let's start off with the basics. When electricity comes from the grid into an apartment building, that electricity is then split off in all different directions. Some of that electricity goes to a common power meter, which measures the amount of electricity being used by all the common things in your building, like lighting in the stairways, the garage door, maybe an elevator, or maybe pool pumps or air conditioning in the hallways. All the electricity that's used by common property passes through the common power meter and is measured by the common power meter. Other electricity is being sent to every apartment, and there's a meter on each of those paths as well, which is going to measure how much electricity is being used by all the electrical devices in that one unit, like your aircon, your cooktop, your lights, maybe your hot water unit in your apartment. Now, in an ideal world, electric vehicle chargers would be connected to individual lot meters. And that's because it's a really simple solution. If an electric vehicle charger is connected to your apartment electricity meter, that means your electricity that you use by charging your vehicle is just going to be part of your normal electricity bill. You're going to pay it as normal, you'll be able to see how much you're using, and there's no need for any extra expenses. But that's not always possible. And that's to do with where the meters are physically located in your building. As we know, apartment buildings come in all different shapes and sizes, and over the decades, there have been different design decisions made relating to electrical infrastructure. In some apartment buildings, and in this context, electric vehicle charging, we're going to call these the ideal buildings, all the electrical infrastructure, the switchboards, and all the meters are located in the basement car park, which means it's a really short distance to get from the meters to the parking bays where the electric vehicle chargers are going to be. That's going to keep the cost nice and low and make that a great solution. But in most times, that's not actually possible. Next best option might be if all the meters for your apartment building are on the ground level, which is still relatively close. We can get conduit, we can send all the cables down into the underground car park. Not a big problem. But then we have some other apartment buildings, particularly large modern apartments, where the individual apartment electricity meters are going to be located up on different floors of the apartment block, sometimes 10, 20, or even higher up in the air. Now, if that's the case, it's just not going to be feasible to connect an electric vehicle charger down on the ground level or the basement car park all the way up to the electricity meter, which is going to be 10 floors or more up. And the reason it's not feasible is the cost of copper. A really big part of the expense of an EV charging installation is the cabling. Not just the cable itself, but installing that cable. So if your chargers are going to be in the basement and your individual apartment unit meters are going to be located somewhere far away from the basement, chances are you'll need to connect your chargers to the common power supply. Now, if you go back 5 or more years, that was quite a difficult thing, because if you've got an electric vehicle charger that's connected to the common power supply, that means all the owners in the building are paying for the power that you're using to charge your car. And of course, they don't want to do that. But now there are a lot of different tools and technologies to make that process a lot easier. And we're going to be looking into those in a few other episodes of this series. So if you're wondering whether it's best to connect EV chargers to the common power meter or to individual apartment meters in your building, it's best to get a professional involved. And that could be the electrician for your building, who will be able to figure that out pretty quickly, or as part of an EV charging feasibility study undertaken by Solar Choice or another organization like us. And it's a really important step, because if you connect to the common power meter when you didn't need to, you're going to have unnecessary expenses for many years to come. So it's a really important question to tackle early on in the process of investigating charging in your building. Stay tuned, because the next video in this series is going to be looking at building platforms that are specifically designed for apartment buildings where you have to connect chargers to the common power supply. That's coming up next.